if you'll tell me that all the businesses in the world have ups and downs, I agree. But the frequency of those when you're building startup, way more. I think that I heard the best quote on that from Ben Horowitz. Said, oh yeah, I slept like a baby. I woke up every 2 hours and cried.
Uri Levine.
Uri Levine.
Uri Levine.
Entrepreneur and author renowned for his innovative contribution to the tech industry, Levine's entrepreneurial prowess has led to the creation of transformative apps like Waze.
Gente que usa la aplicación Waze.
As long as you're following the traditional thought, then you end up with the traditional results. And look, we're trying to build something new that no one did before, and we think that we know exactly what we're doing, but the reality is that we don't, so we try. And I realized that really what I need is, if you're afraid to fail, you already failed because you're not going to try. Albert Einstein used to say that if you haven't failed, that's because you haven't tried new things before. If you're going to try new things, you will fail. This is going to be a very long journey, way longer than you expected. Now, if you'll tell me, oh, today with AI, everything is shorter, ChatGPT just started. No, they're 7.5 years old. 6 years until you heard about them for the first time. It's one of the most important learning for entrepreneurs is that.
Hello, everyone. Very excited. Club del 1%. This is a special once-in-a-lifetime podcast. We're going to have it with a great world-class founder. I'm going to introduce himself now, but thank you very much for all the Spanish community for listening to us. And yeah, we have a special surprise also in the end, so hang on. We have here in Madrid an iconic figure in the entrepreneurship world, like literally the world. We went to Israel. We're thrilled to introduce Uri Levine, a distinguished Israeli entrepreneur and author renowned for his innovative contribution to the tech industry worldwide. Levine's entrepreneurial prowess has led to the creation of transformative apps like Waze. Yeah, you heard it right. Waze, very special moment because I was going on the Uber coming here and he was using Waze, which is quite normal, but quite unique when you're interviewing one of the co-founders. So, I just felt like goosebumps literally coming here and more now. Waze has more than 1 billion users, which is a huge number. I cannot even get my mind into it. It's groundbreaking success, which we're going to talk about, led to its acquisition by Google in June 2013 for an astonishing amount of 1.1 billion, which at the time was the biggest acquisition of any app in history. So also... And yeah, this marked a significant milestone in Levine's career. However, he didn't stop there because he co-founded another unicorn. So few individuals in the history of mankind have contributed so much to entrepreneur as yourself. Yet doing one unicorn is unique. Getting two and the ones that are coming is more unique. So thank you very much, Uri. And now, of course, we'll also dive into it, but you have this great book, Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. Enamórate del problema, no de la solución, which is available in any Spanish library right now, which the prologue is by Steve Wozniak, which is also mind-breaking. So without any further ado, Uri, thank you very much for being here, for adding value to the Spanish community, and it's a pleasure to have you. It's mind-blowing.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So, Uri, I wanted to go back a little bit on how did your education, your early career shape your entrepreneurial approach? Were you a kind of lemonade stand entrepreneur, or how the entrepreneurship world find you? Or
so
you
I
find
was always a troublemaker, right? I didn't accept anything for granted. I will challenge pretty much everything. And I was troublemaker to the level that I was, from high school, I was kicked out from class like every week, right? And at my different jobs, I always eventually get fired because I'm a troublemaker. But I think that it's more of the early days at home that developed my... low fear of failure, right? So the idea of it's okay to try and it's okay to fail, and if you fail, then you get up and try another approach, right? And this is perhaps one of the most important learning for entrepreneurs is that this is going to be a journey of failures, right? But it was my first startup was only when I was 35, and before that I was spent about 11 years at Converse Technology that today no one knows what it is. But back then that was actually the voicemail, right? So today we don't use voicemail anymore, but back then that was a huge global success. And after that, mobile email, and after that, mobile internet, and after that, Waze.
Do you think that being a black sheep, more or less, troublemaker, not fitting in, did that make you want to find the entrepreneurship way? Like, how do you envision that troublemaking and then further into your ventures?
So the non-conformist is really, really important, right? Because in order to innovate, in order to disrupt the market, in order to come out with a different approach, you need to think of things differently, right? And as long as you're following the traditional thought, then you end up with the traditional results. And if you want to build something different, then you have to think about it differently.
It makes complete sense. Uri, I want to jump into Waze, and then I want to come back into more your philosophy of life and business-wise. But what inspired you to co-found Waze, and how was that journey?
So, the realization was somewhere back in 2006 that we were in the northern part of Israel for the weekend. And then when it was time to go back, back then there were only two major highways coming back to Tel Aviv. And we were like 10 different cars there, right? And we were the last one to leave. And so I called them up. I called up the rest of the drivers and asked them, how is traffic like on your route before I actually need to make the choice, right? And some of them told me, okay, we're on this road and this is really heavy. And the other one told me we are on this road and it's not that bad, right? And I realized that really what I need is someone ahead of me on the road to tell me what's going on. And I tried to start that approach with, different perspectives and different angles. And it was only at May 2007 where I met the other two co-founders, Ehud and Amir, that they, we shared the same vision. And we decided that we are going to start Waze.
That's crazy. And how was the journey into its acquisition in Google? Was it a roller coaster or?
So I will speak generally about the journey and then maybe specific, right? So building a startup, I can define that in three different dimensions, right? The first one, it's a roller coaster journey with ups and downs and ups and downs. And look, if you'll tell me that all the businesses in the world have ups and downs, I agree. But the frequency of those when you are building startup, way more. I think that I heard the best quote on that from Ben Horowitz. Ben Horowitz is one of the founders of Andreessen Horowitz venture capital firm. And before that, he used to be a CEO of a startup. And he was asked whether or not he was sleeping well at night as a CEO of a startup. He said, oh yeah, I slept like a baby. I woke up every 2 hours and cried. And that's really the reality. It's really a roller coaster journey. It's also a journey of failures. And look, we're trying to build something new that no one did before. And we think that we know exactly what we are doing. But the reality is that we don't. So we try. We try one thing and it doesn't work. We try another thing and it doesn't work. We keep on trying different things until we find one thing that does work. And if you realize that this is going to be a journey of failures, then there are two immediate conclusions. The first one is that if you're afraid to fail, in reality, you already failed because you're not going to try. Albert Einstein used to say that if you haven't failed, that's because you haven't tried new things before. If you're going to try new things, you will fail. And this is dramatic, right? Because at the end of the day, what creates a stronger ecosystem for entrepreneurship is lower fear of failure, right? That's it. Because there are more entrepreneurs. And guess what? If there are more entrepreneurs, then more of them are going to be successful. The second part is that if you realize that this is going to be a journey of failures, then you want to fail fast. Because when you fail fast, you still have plenty of time to try another approach, another version of the product, another attempt, and so forth. And as soon as you realize that, you're actually starting to move at the pace of a startup and not at the pace of anything else, right? The biggest enemy of good enough is perfect. You don't need to be perfect in order to win the market. You need to be good enough. And by the way that you are going to become good enough is that you start not good enough, and you are iterating and iterating and iterating until you become good enough. So occasionally I will tell entrepreneurs, launch your product, right? And they will tell me, oh, we're not ready yet. You will never be ready if you don't launch the product, right? Just imagine there are two twin sister startups starting exactly the same day, making exactly the same product and exactly the same progress until one day this company is saying, our product is really bad. It's embarrassing level. We need to keep on building that, right? And company B is saying exactly the same thing. Product is not ready. It's embarrassing level, right? But we are going to go to the market with it. From this point on, company B is making way faster progress than company A. Now, when I tell that to entrepreneurs, some of them will tell me, "Oh, it's embarrassing level. We're gonna lose our customers, right?" And I will tell them, "Wait a minute, you don't have customers." "Oh, we're gonna hurt our brand name." No, you don't have a brand name. You will have a brand name after you become successful. But the way to become successful is that you embrace the journey of failures. And the last part of this, the last dimension of this journey is that this is going to be a very long journey, way longer than you expected. And in particular, the longest part of it is until you figure out product market fit. And product market fit is really simple. This is about creating value to your customers or to your users, right? So if you don't figure out product market fit, you will die. That's it. You never heard of a company that did not figure out product market fit. They simply die. But for a second, I want you to think of all the applications that you're using every day, right? From Waze, WhatsApp, searching Google, Uber, Netflix, Instagram, whatever it is, and ask yourself, what is the difference between any of those today and the first time that you have used it? And the answer is that there is no difference. We are searching Google today the same way that we search Google for the first time in our life. We are using Waze the same way that we use Waze for the first time in our life. What we don't know is how long did it take them to get there? Because before they figure out product market fit, we never heard of them. And then they did, and they never changed that anymore, right? How long was that part of the journey? We have no idea. For Waze, it was 4 years. For Microsoft, it was 5 years. For Netflix, it was 10 years. Mm-hmm. Now, if you'll tell me, oh, today with AI, everything is shorter, and, ChatGPT just started. No, they're 7.5 years old. 6 years until you heard about them for the first time. So creating value takes time, and in particular, figuring out product market fit. Now, the good news is that product market fit have only one metric: retention. That's really simple. If you create value, they will come back. If they are not coming back, that means that you are not creating value. And you need to keep on iterating until you get there.
Totally. To dive in a little bit into that, let's start with, put an example in Waze. How did you get your first, let's say, 1,000 clients? Did you invest in acquisition? What kind of strategies did you do to not only gain those clients, but retain them?
So Waze is crowdsourced the data, right? So obviously at the beginning, it was not good enough. It was not good enough from the product perspective, but also not from the data perspective. The first users were enthusiastic amateurs. And this is always the case, right? So the first users are going to be those that care about what you're doing. And you usually can figure out they are connected online, right? They might be on Facebook groups of people that care about navigation or maps or GPS or GIS or whatever. Back then it was not Facebook, it was like different forums, internet forums, and that was easy to find them. These are always going to be the initial users, the enthusiastic amateurs, those that care about what you're doing. So if you're decided that you're going to build a system that helps people to find the best clubs and best bars, then those that really go out every day and they care are going to be the first users.
Totally. I want to jump in now into I was going to say your book, but I want to start with the philosophy, because we were speaking off camera and I told you, hey, you need the Spanish version. You told me, no, I've been wearing this for over a decade. So when you decided to write the book, it was quite obvious the naming. How was that story? Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. Why is that your philosophy or life, or why you want to predicate this message?
So look, I'm always looking for simplicity. And the journey of entrepreneurship is about value creation. The simplest way to create value is solve a problem. That's the simplest way. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only way, but it's certainly the simplest way. But if you fall in love with the problem is going to serve as the North Star of your journey. And when you have a North Star, you're going to make less deviation from the course and increase the likelihood of being successful. But I think that the most powerful part of it is the story that you tell is going to be way more compelling. Just imagine that we will be here having this podcast in 2007, right? I'm not sure how old you were in 2007, but just imagine that this is the case, right? And I will tell you I'm going to build an AI crowdsource-based navigation system. And you're going to say, oh yeah, very interesting, but you don't care. If I will tell you I'm going to help you to avoid traffic jams, then you do care. And so what happens is that when your customers care, they want you to be successful. And when they want you to be successful, they are going to help you to become successful. And still, I would say, I get probably 100 emails a month from entrepreneurs. And until a year and a half ago, 95% of them were saying our solution is, rather than, or this is what we are doing, and not why we are doing that. Why we are doing that, this is the value that we create, right? Since a year ago, 95% of them will say, our AI solution is, right? And
Exactly. And how do you identify the correct problem?
Look, for my startups, I have identified them, right? But in general, I would say, look, the best way to move, and this is really the philosophy, is start with a problem. Think of a problem, a big problem, something that is worth solving. And then ask yourself, so who has this problem? Now, if you happen to be the only person on the planet with this problem, go to a therapist. Way cheaper and faster than building a startup. But if a lot of people actually have this problem, what you really want to do next is go and speak with those people and understand their perception of the problem. And so the validation of the problem is before you even decide to start. And what's going to happen is two things, right? And by the way, people often ask me, so how many people do I need to speak to? Then I'll tell them 100. You don't really need 100, but when you think of 100, you basically say, okay, it's not just friends and family, right? It's someone that I don't know. I need to speak with them. Usually what happens is after 10 or 20, you either qualify the problem as real or you disqualify the problem. Because what happens if this problem is not real, then the responses that you're gonna hear are like, oh, I know someone that have this problem. No. Not me, but I can think of someone that can use that. I'm not sure, I don't know, maybe, depending on the solution and so forth. If the problem is real, then the responses are going to be completely different. They will tell you, oh, no, this is not the problem. The problem is, and they will give you their version of the problem. And so understanding the perception of the problem is really, really critical. And if a lot of people are supporting that, then you go and decide that this is your journey. If you don't hear a lot of people that are basically saying we have this problem, find the next one.
That's awesome. I'm just gonna throw this question in. Why do you think most startups fail? And what would be some perhaps rookie mistakes that young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general mistake when they found a startup?
So the first one is that they create no value, right? They don't figure out product market fit because in most of them, they try to start a solution and not a problem. So this is number one reason. Number two reason is not strong teams, right? So way less than strong teams, and in particular, the CEO is not strong enough. And so if you would ask me, and by the way, usually a strong CEO will figure out the problem is not real, and let's find a different problem. So the team is always going to become an issue. And by the way, I spoke with many entrepreneurs that their startup failed and asked them why, what happened. And about half told me the team was not right. And I kept on asking, okay, what do you mean the team was not right? And, I heard we had this guy not good enough and this guy not good enough. So not good enough was the main reason. Another reason that I heard quite often is that we had communication issues, right? Something that I actually called ego management issues. And then I asked them the most interesting question: when did you know that the team is not right? Now, the answer was rather scary. All of them told me within the first month.
Whoa.
Then he said, wait a minute. Exactly, right. So I said, wait a minute. If you knew within the first month that the team is not right and you didn't do anything, the problem was not that the team was not right. The problem was that the CEO did not make hard decisions. Making hard decisions is hard. Making easy decisions is easy. This is, by the way, one of my chapters in my book called Firing and Hiring. And when I initially sent the book proposal to some publishers, some of them told me, oh, it should be hiring and firing. And I said, no, firing is hard decision. Hiring is easy decisions. This is why, first of all, you have to learn how to make the hard decisions. Now, the conclusion, by the way, is really simple. If we all realize that if someone shouldn't be there, everyone realize within a month, then every time that you hire someone new, mark your calendars for 30 days down the road and ask yourself one question. Knowing what I know today, would I hire this person?
Whoa.
Now, if the answer is no, then fire them immediately. They are not going to be successful. If the answer is yes, then I would say go to this person and tell them that they exceed your expectations and you are really happy that they've joined. And if this is a small startup, then give them more equity.
Diving into that, what would be just more broad? How do you think successful figures take decisions assertively? Is there any more tactics to decision making, not only on hiring but in general?
So, so what makes successful startups is, by and large, the behavior of the CEO. Number one behavior: never give up. Number one importance of behavior: never give up. Right? An entrepreneur does not give up. They might die, but they will never give up. Number two behavior is making decision with conviction. And this is really, really important, right? Because if you don't make decision, then the problem of not making decision is that everyone knows. And if everyone knows and you are not making decisions and you are being expected to make the decision, then you're losing your leadership. And basically what's going to happen is that the top performer people would leave. And then you end up with not a strong team, and then it's becoming even harder to be successful. So how do you make decisions? By and large, I would say in most cases, we do know what is the right decision. We are looking for confirmation. Then go and get this confirmation. Ask yourself the question like, if there will be here a different CEO, right? What decision that person is going to make?
Oh.
So I disconnect myself from the emotional part of the decisions and from the history of other decisions that were made. And now I know what is the right decision. So disconnect yourself from the emotional part of it. And this is a very, very strong way of doing that. Right? Another way is actually using a coin, right? So I had that recently. I told someone, imagine that there is a new coin, not Bitcoin, something completely new, that one side says, fire this person, and the other side says, don't fire this person. And you can flip this coin once. What is it that you would like that coin to end up with? What is it that you want it to show, right? And
put you into that, I get it.
And so in many cases, we can force the decision. And the gut feeling, by and large, is 80% right.
Whoa. What would you say? So when starting a business, most entrepreneurs do need that capability of being flexible and pivoting into different business models, or perhaps like taking rough decisions which redirect that. Would you recommend to focus on the initial idea? How would you recommend entrepreneurs to perhaps focus more?
So focus is critical, right? Because we are usually small organization and we have one thesis and we need to prove that. And so anything else is going to be destruction to our journey. And so focus is not about what we're doing, it's about what we are not doing. These are the hard decisions. Saying no to anyone else that told us, so Waze is only for commuter drivers. Right? It's not for taxi drivers. It's not for truck drivers. It's not for bicycles. It's not for pedestrian. It's not for anyone else. Because every time that we had a choice, we said no. We are supporting the daily commuters on their way to the office and back. And to a certain extent, I would say, so focus is dramatic, but the other part of it is the realization that building startup is in phases. So first of all, you have to figure out product market fit. Now, if you'll tell me, oh, before that I need to raise capital, then first of all, you need to raise capital. And that's the main thing. That's the only thing that matters. And you focus on that until it's done. And then you move to the next phase, and then you move to the next phase, and then you move to the next phase. In general, I would say we would like to think that a startup that changed their business model is pivoting, right? Waze changed their business model. We didn't. We did not have one. And we tried multiple ways until we find something that does work. And we tried different things, right? And so if you will ask me at the beginning, what is how Waze is going to make money? Then I would have told you, we're going to sell traffic information to municipalities and to fleet management companies and to whoever cares, right? But eventually we didn't, right? We ended up with advertisement, right? So the fact that we change our... and I don't even call that pivot, right? Pivot is once you have something that is working, and then you decide to change that, right? Netflix pivoted. They were sending DVDs via the mail, and then they change into streaming. So this is major pivot. I had other company that had to pivot because of change of regulations or different changes in the market and so forth. But the starting point is, and this is really the part of the philosophy, right? The journey is about value creation. If you create value, you will be successful. You will figure out the rest as well.
That's great. I love it how you said, looking at me, it just feels awesome. I wanted to know, so you're one of a iconic figure in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, but you also know lots of, like, literally in your book, we have Steve Wozniak saying that this book is going to change your life. So you've met lots of successful entrepreneurs. What would you say are the three main things that every successful entrepreneur have? I want to keep it broad because is it like habits that you've seen in common? Is it mentality? Have you deciphered like the secret formula of ingredients that you must have to be?
I'm not 100% sure. I will say that the behavior that makes them successful are never giving up, making hard decisions with conviction, listening to users, listening to the customers, right? This is dramatic, in particular if you're building... if you are still at the phase of figuring out product market fit, then if you don't listen to them, then you're building the wrong product.
Totally. Do you see importance into... So we have Israel, which, just for the people that don't know, I think it has over 100 units. Like, it's crazy. Like, they say it's the next Silicon Valley. You have places like Israel, maybe Singapore, obviously Silicon Valley. Would you say those kind of locations nurture success? Like, is it important to have a network, or would you, what would you say on that?
So what makes a successful ecosystem for entrepreneurship or for startups are actually have four cornerstones, right? So the first one is entrepreneurs. And in entrepreneurs, someone will go into the journey of entrepreneurship when their passion is way higher than the fear of failure and the alternative cost. So what is it that they can do alternatively, right? Fear of failure is something that can change. In general, I would say fear of failure in Spain was way higher than a decade ago, right? Today, more and more. So 10 years ago, if I would ask young people, what is it you would like to do? Oh, we would like to work in the bank, right? Today, more and more people will say, oh, we would like to build our own business. So there is a shift in fear of failure, which increased the number of entrepreneurs. Second one is investors. And investors is about how easy is it to make business here, or to make money here. And so regulation, taxation, and so forth. Spain is actually pretty good. A lot of investors here, and there are venture capital community here. There are other investors. So that part is good. Third one is engineers. End of the day, we need to build something new, right? So we need engineers.
Totally.
That I'm not 100% sure how good the ecosystem here, how good the engineering schools and how many engineers. But in general, I would say the good thing about Spain is that Spain is attractive for all the Spanish-speaking community in the world, right? Which is, I think, maybe the largest spoken language in the world. And so if we don't have enough engineers here, then I would say then bring them from other countries, right? From Latin America, so this is a good opportunity to have enough engineers. The fourth element is experience. Because second-time entrepreneurs have way higher likelihood of being successful, regardless what happened on the first part of the journey. So the experience itself creates an impact. And most of the venture capitals would like to invest in second-time entrepreneurs because they know the statistics. Right? It's a higher likelihood of being successful. What I try to do with the book is share the experience, right? And this is the whole idea about this book. So I'm an entrepreneur, no doubt about it. But I'm also a teacher. So I feel equally rewarded if I build stuff myself or I guide someone to build it. And the result is that writing the book was fulfilling my destiny as a teacher, and then sharing my know-how, which is kind of rare because there are a lot of successful entrepreneurs and there are a lot of successful teachers, but there are very few that are both.
Exactly. I'm 100%. That's why I got so excited. And I think regardless, one of the problems we have here in Spain is that the successful business people, the entrepreneurs, don't have social media, don't have books, don't go on interviews, don't have that connection with the next generation of entrepreneurs. So I'm really happy that you can, and it's what I thought before you said it, and I haven't heard this in any interview, that it's amazing that your figure has both worlds. Let's dive into the book. I would like to know the story behind the book, and of course, what would be the key message you want audiences that you have in lectures, in seminars, or even read the book. Like, what would be a key message that you want them to learn?
So you mentioned earlier Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, and he called that the Bible for entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
And he wrote eventually the foreword to my book. I first met him, when I sent him the first chapter, he said, "I wish I had that when I started." Because really the idea of the book was to help people to become more successful, right? Now, entrepreneurs in particular, because it covers all issues of building a new company, right? But any business person can gain a lot from that. And the whole idea was to share my know-how, because I think that at the end of the day, entrepreneurs are going to change the world. And if we want to have a better world, then we need more entrepreneurs or more successful entrepreneurs. This is a way to create the value for them. So that was the inspiration of writing the book. But I think that the reality is that the first cut was somewhere back in 2017 when I was teaching MBA students on building startups, right? And so I then created probably more than 50% of the content that only during COVID I had the time to sit down and write it. And I'm very happy with the result, right? I have a lot of people coming back and say, "Wow, you don't realize how it changed my life," right? And for me, every time that I hear that, this is the most rewarding part of it, right? Because this is what I wanted. And by the way, I met Steve Wozniak at a conference about 10 years ago, somewhere in Central America, in Guatemala, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And when I grew up, Steve Wozniak was, the guru of technology, right? So he was my idol. And we were both speaking at the conference. And so we had, the organizer of the conference had a dinner the night before with the speakers. And I had an opportunity to meet him for the first time in my life. And I didn't really care about what's for dinner and so forth. The only thing that I care about is that I wanted to have a selfie with him. And so I took out my iPhone, and I was lucky that I had an iPhone and not an Android back then. And with the iPhone, there are two ways that you can take pictures, right? So one is that you click here on the other one is that you are using the volume button right here, and you click here, and you take a picture the same way. And I took a selfie using the volume button, and he said, "Finally." And I said, "Finally what?" I said, "Finally someone using it the way that I meant it to be." Now, when you think about the evolution, he was right? So the first iPhone was an evolution of a PDA and a smartphone with operating system and digital camera, right? This is digital camera. This is how we used to take pictures, right? So this is where the volume button is. So it made perfect sense, right? Except the fact that most people don't use it this way. So that was an inspiration for me to write one of the chapters of Understanding Users. Occasionally, if I would have large audience, then I would ask people, so how do you use Waze, right? So, when you go home with Waze, you enter the destination, and then there are two ways that Waze guides you, right? Through the screen with showing you what is it that you need to do, or through the audio prompts that tells you what to do. And then I ask people, if you are looking at the screen, raise your hand. And I have about 70% of the people raise their hand. And I ask them to look around, right? And then I ask, if you're listening to the prompts, raise your hand, right? They're about 20% raising their hand. And I ask them to look around them. There is no right or wrong. Mm-hmm. There are different people that are using products differently. And in particular, their first use is going to be very different. If you are a user, if you are using Waze in a certain way, up until today, you didn't even think about that there might be other people that are using it differently. And after today, you know that, but you still don't care. But if you're a building product and you don't know how people are using your product, you are going to build the wrong product. And the only way that you can figure that out is actually watch users. Watch them. And if they're doing exactly what you wanted them to do, then this is excellent. And if not, then ask them why. This is how you're going to learn. This is how you're going to improve.
Active, obviously. Not that crazy. We were talking about Steve Wozniak, but here we also have Mark Randolph, co-founder of Netflix, which I think you're going to meet this week also here in Madrid. So it's just amazing how everything pivots.
Mark Randolph is really, I met him after I wrote the book. But I reached out to him to write an endorsement beforehand, right? So I haven't met him before. And I read someplace that he's answering all of his emails. And so I sent him an email and I said, okay, if you're reading all of your emails, then eventually you're going to read this one. And we have three things in common. I'm reading all of my emails as well. And I'm using your product, you are using mine. And he wrote a book called This Will Never Work, right? And I told him, I heard this will never work more times than you did.
Whoa.
And then we became friends.
That's crazy. And that was like the milestones of the email you wrote.
Yeah.
Very intelligent. I want to dive in real quick into what would be two-word question. What would be the best advice you've ever had, and what would be the worst advice someone has ever given to you, if you can remember?
So the second one is easy. That will never work, right?
Okay.
And that happens so many times. Look, when I first, usually what happens is that it's not an overnight decision to make the leapfrog of building Waze, for example. It's a process, right? So you validate the problem, and there are more people that you speak to, and they when they tell you, oh, yeah, this is real problem, then you feel like they're sending you on a mission to solve the problem, right? So this is where you essentially fall in love with the problem. And you think about this new concept or new venture from multiple perspectives until you feel confident enough. And that might take a month or even a year, right? And then you go and tell your friends, this is what I'm going to do. Now, the first reaction is always the same. This will never work. And these are the nice guys. The other people will tell you, oh, this is the stupidest idea that I ever heard. And trust me, I heard that. But this is very different, right? You should expect that because two things, right? Number one, you go through a process of a thought process inside your head and maybe with dialogues with others until you are ready. And then you tell someone that they did not go through that process and so they are not ready. So this is one. Number two, people are afraid of changes. In general, people are afraid of changes. And so you tell them something new, this is change, they don't like it already. Mm-hmm. And number three, which is really, really dramatic, is that, look, you have the spirit of entrepreneurs. You are a troublemaker. You don't take anything for granted. You are challenging pretty much everything. You're willing to go on a different way than everyone else. Most people are not. And so when you tell them I'm going to do something completely different, they used to something else. They don't like changes. And their mindset is such that, okay, we are not going to go into something new. And so don't do that. Don't even start. It will never work. That's the worst advice that I ever heard, even if they were right. Even if it eventually didn't work, right? But if you didn't give it a try, then by definition, it's not going to work.
Exactly. Literally.
And the best advice were always, those that encourage me to further think, right? So, okay, so what happened and what can we learn from that? Mm-hmm. And in general, I would say one of the biggest challenges in the world is that when something goes wrong, we are looking whom to blame, and we fix that by firing that someone, right? But we haven't learned anything. So instead of who, so failure is not a question of who; it's a question of what. If we ask the right question, then we start to correct that, and then we prevent the next one. Because otherwise, every time that there is a failure, we're going to fire someone, and we think that we are solving that. No, we're not.
Totally. Yes, we're ending the interview. I want to ask you on your future projects, but more or less, more than that, I want to know, like, you've changed the world, you've, like, co-founded huge, important companies. What proposes you ambition-wise to keep on moving forward, to keep doing things? Why not, like, relax maybe on the beach or something like that? So yeah, basically what's next and what proposes you to come to Madrid to give, like, keep on moving forward?
So that's really easy. I have a purpose in life. And when you have a purpose, then all of your decisions become really simple. My purpose is about value creation. Mm-hmm. So as long as I can create value, I feel valuable, right? I feel meaningful. And the opposite of meaningful is meaningless. And you don't want to be meaningless, right? You want to be meaningful. So I try to become meaningful to a lot of people, to the users of Waze and Moovit and the rest of the startups, to the CEO of the different startups that I've created or support or mentor them, and to my students that I teach occasionally. I was last October I was teaching here at IE in Madrid, mm-hmm. And if everything goes well, then I will keep on teaching here. Nice. And to the reader of my book the same way, right? So I feel that, or my destiny is about creating value. Totally. And I will keep on doing that as long as I can.
I don't want to go back, just a small parenthesis, but I'm just curious. When you co-found Waze, was your ambition in that moment, I'm going to change the world, this is going to be huge? Or yes?
Yes. The problem was huge, right? Everywhere. People were suffering from traffic jams everywhere. Now, if you look back and you ask yourself, okay, we started Waze, we said that we're going to help you to avoid traffic jams. You don't avoid traffic jams. You might choose the fastest route, but you're still stuck in traffic jams. The greatest value of Waze is that it creates certainty. You know how long it's going to get there. The certainty is way higher value than saving time. So occasionally you'll find out that you start your journey with a purpose of belief that this is the value that we're going to solve. And you end up with a different value that you create. But as long as you create value, you will be successful.
Totally. Thank you very much. Just to end, 3 quick questions. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive in this planet, who would it be and why?
So when I look at the past or even to the current, then I see perhaps the most important innovators of the world is Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, and of course Elon Musk. Right? These are, in my mind, the most innovative people in the world. Before that was Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci is something that is way beyond imagination, right? And I'm using one of his quotes today on a regular basis. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Really, really hard to build something that is simple.
Wow. Okay, I'm just a counter, perhaps not a dinner, maybe a road trip with all these figures. Where would you go?
I don't even care. As long as I can go in circle, right? As long as it's long enough.
The farthest road trip to keep on the conversation. That's great. If you could give one advice to a child, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to fail.
Okay. If you would give one advice to an entrepreneur, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to fail.
I expected that a little bit. Any books, movies, apart, of course, from this marvelous thing that you would recommend young entrepreneurs?
So certainly This Will Never Work by Mark Randolph. One of the reasons is that, look, when you go into this journey, the decision is yours, right? But realizing the challenges of the journey are important, right? And so anyone that tells you, oh, this is a piece of cake, this is bullshit. It's not a piece of cake. It's really, really hard, a long and challenging journey. So anything that prepares you for a long, challenging journey is good. Oh. The hard things about hard things as well.
It's crazy. So yeah, just to end, imagine that all Spain or Latin America is listening to you. What would be that one message? It could be a word, a speech, a quote.
I wrote the book for you. As simple as that. I wrote the book in order to help you to become more successful. Do yourself a favor, read the book.
Yeah, let's go. Read the book. You have it available, of course, on Amazon. And the Spanish version for the Spanish audience, you have it in FNAC, Casa del Libro, El Corte Inglés, Amazon. Así que nada, os dejo también. We have a little surprise that we roughly spoke, but maybe we're gonna give away one signed book, if that's okay for you, for the audience, or a couple of signed books. So leave a comment, I don't know, with one of your key learnings, and we'll select 2 lucky ones of you with a signed book. And yeah, thank you very much, Uri, for adding so much value, for being here in Madrid. It's literally amazing, and hope you enjoy the rest of your stay in Spain.
Gracias.
Gracias. Hasta luego.